Welcome back, and if you just happen to tune in, this is Rise and Shine. And prior to the break, I did mention that we'll be having a very famous and an interesting character with us on Rise and Shine today to talk about a very diverse area. Let it be from human rights to work-life balance. It's a diverse area, so she is very well qualified in all those. And let me give you a small brief before I say a very good morning to her. And she is actually the former Foreign Minister of Foreign Affairs in Maldives, and the daughter of Maumoon Abdul Gayoom, the former president of the Maldives, and is also well-known women's rights and human rights activist, and is one of the few key female politicians in the Maldives as well. So this is Miss Dunya Maumoon. A very good morning to you.
Good morning. It's a pleasure
having you on stage. Well, Ms. Dunya, how does it feel to be back in Sri Lanka?
It's a pleasure to be back, and let me also thank you for the opportunity to be on this show and to speak on a few issues of interest. Colombo is a lovely city. I've had the opportunity to visit a few times, even in my former role as a foreign minister, and also on personal visits as well.
Right. So, Ms. Dina, just to start things off, now Sri Lanka and Maldives have always had a beautiful and a strong friendship with the countries, and both your father and the mother have schooled in Sri Lanka as well. So just tell us a bit about the strong relationship you have with Sri Lanka.
Yes, I think you mentioned very rightly. I think Maldives and Sri Lanka have strong historical ties, and we have a lot of people-to-people contact. A lot of our people travel here. There are many Sri Lankans working in Maldives as well. And there's trade between our countries, our families. My family has also got strong links to Sri Lanka, as you mentioned. My mother was here at a boarding school from a very young age. She has very fond memories of Sri Lanka, so a lot of her growing up was in Sri Lanka itself. My father also spent some time here. He actually studied later on in Egypt, but on his way there he spent what he describes as some of the best months of his life. He said he was waiting for the opportunity to study in Egypt, but he spent a lot of time playing cricket here, and I think that was something that he enjoyed very much and has very, very good memories. So we have very close ties. My father was also sent here as an ambassador sometime in the 70s, so I remember from my childhood also being in Sri Lanka, and that very good memories from those times.
Okay, so Ms. Dunya, seeing you as a lady who had a progressive career, how did it all start? Because I heard that you started off all at the UN and then to where you are. So how did it all start, and how did this journey begin?
Yes, I had most of my schooling in the Maldives, but after my O-levels I had the opportunity to study abroad in the UK, and my parents sent both myself, my sister and my brother. We went together. It was very far away from home. It was not easy to part with the family and to be away in such a country, but it was a good experience and a learning experience. So I did my undergraduate at Cambridge University there, and my postgraduate at the London School of Economics and Political Science. When I came back, I actually had the opportunity to work abroad as well at the UN in Beirut. I did the UN exam, and I had done several interviews, and I was fortunate to get that position. I also got the opportunity to be based in the Maldives, and due to my family situation, I had a young son at that time, and my husband, who was working in the UK, was also ready to come to Maldives to try to work there because we wanted to be together as a family. So I chose to work in the Maldives in the UN, in the United Nations Population Fund, and I think it was a good opportunity to start off my career with the UN because it gave me more international exposure, if you will, and a lot of discipline and a lot of things to learn because it was a very busy job, but I had good supervisors who guided me in the work that we had to do.
So when you talk about health, it's a very diverse area and it's not very easy. So throughout your time at the UN Population Fund and then as a junior health minister, you launched a lot of initiatives to uplift the health sector in Maldives. So how has that been?
Yes, in the UN, mostly my work focused on reproductive health, women's health, particularly on encouraging women to kind of take ownership of looking after themselves, and also to have the choice in terms of children, to make sure that the children that they had were wanted and that they were able to kind of keep themselves in good health and their children and their families. And I think it's very important that women continue to do that, because we do bear or try to juggle many things. Specifically, we still have a big role as mothers and wives, and I think sometimes we tend to care for others and maybe not look after ourselves as well as we should be. So I think it's important for women to be more aware and involved in it. At the UN, I also worked on areas such as population and development, gender and women's rights issues, particularly on issues to do with violence against women, for example, which in our society at that time was still very much a taboo subject or a hush subject, which people didn't want to acknowledge that we had these problems and issues, and they wanted to sweep it under the carpet and kind of not talk about it. I was involved in important studies relating to these areas, also to do with youth and to do with drug abuse, also our awareness on HIV and AIDS. So I think a very key and pivotal kind of research while I was at the UN, which kind of opened people's eyes on what the actual real issues were that we were working or we had to face in our country. And I think it's an important step in trying to address them, to actually acknowledge that you do have a problem in the first place. And I know in Sri Lanka as well, there's been very active government initiatives as well as civil society who are working on women's rights issues. And I'm pleased to know that Sri Lankan women have also made a lot of advances, and I think Maldivian and Sri Lankan women do share a lot in common in being lucky to have some kinds of opportunities with some of the other women in our South Asian countries perhaps don't have as much as we do. So at the Health Ministry, I was also involved in the health research area. Some of the important studies to do with, again, on women's health issues, also habits and information, knowledge and practices. We were able to undertake that. And one of the key projects I was working on was launching the first ever medical college in the Maldives, because most of our students are going abroad to study medicine and to become qualified as doctors. So I think the opportunity to have a quality institution in the country where it is affordable as well, so they can stay in their own countries and qualify to become doctors, I think is an important initiative. So I'm happy to have been part of that process.
Definitely. I mean, that's in fact very nice to hear, that having the education institute in the country itself to serve the purpose. And also, like you correctly mentioned, Ms. Dunya, well, when it comes to women, they really don't care about themselves, but they're always, about their family and their kids. But I think it's also important that they also look about themselves as well, like you did mention.
Yes, with the point that you were talking about women's right and the situation which you correctly mentioned about Sri Lanka as well. So I would like to ask, what is the current situation in Maldives currently for women, and how are you planning on uplifting it and bringing this situation to a better place?
Actually, in Maldives, I think we do see a society where women have been active in their communities in the past. They have been involved in initiatives such as, even building schools, looking at healthcare, and very involved in their communities. Unfortunately, some of the areas where we still want to see women more actively participating include in politics and in public life, as the presenter kindly mentioned. I think I have had some sort of contribution. There are many other key women who have held important positions in our government, and also are active in parliament and in the political parties. But at present we have, for example, within cabinet only 3 women, and in parliament the numbers are very low. Within my own party as well, I have been trying to promote more women coming out, standing for public office, including for parliament. Unfortunately, there are still issues to do with confidence. There are issues to do with how society views women who come out, and the kind of challenges that they face in going ahead in this field. So my main message has been to really have that self-confidence that women can be active and can play a very positive role in politics as in many other areas, so that women shouldn't hesitate and that they should really try and come out and with the support of their partners, the husbands and the families, I think women would be able to succeed in going ahead in these areas. Another point that I have often highlighted also is the economic independence of women. Many times we see women are dependent on others entirely, which puts them in a very vulnerable position. We have many female-headed households, for example. Divorce is high in Maldives. Many mothers looking after children on their own as well. And there are fathers and husbands who are good and who do provide for their children even after divorce. But there are many cases where this doesn't happen and the women are struggling on their own. And many women have succeeded in bringing up, very, very responsible children and citizens who have performed well in education and are able to contribute back to society. But again, we have the other issues of children who don't get proper care, and we see increasing crime, we see young kids on the streets, so social issues that we do need to work on and to address.
Indeed, if women can go to space, there's nothing, I think, beyond that.
And I think definitely you are a very good example for the Maldivian crowd out there, that women can do something beyond, without being really limited only to the household work. And has there been any progress, Ms. Dunya, in terms of, after you implemented these strategies, what has the progress been like in Maldives with regards to women's participation in different things?
I think we do see, we are very happy to see women's participation in a range of areas, and this includes, if you look at education in terms of their performance at high educational levels, we see that this is improving a lot now. In terms of health, I think women's health has improved, and when we look at our indicators in terms of life expectancy, for example, we are pleased to see that women are doing well now, and the major diseases that they used to face, particularly in childbearing years, women dying in childbirth, a lot of these issues we have addressed. But as I mentioned, in some of the other areas, such as in political participation, public office, there's still a hesitation on the side of women, and I think though our society is becoming more conservative in some ways, so women finding it more difficult because a lot more discussion on how is women's role at home, should they only, but there's a lot of other discussion as well that men and women should work together, be supportive of each other, and that both can go ahead in careers, and that in terms of looking after children and their homes, that men are playing a greater role, and that's a positive thing that we do see amongst our youth now, and a lot of discussion saying that women are entitled to have fulfilling careers as well. And I think as the first woman foreign minister, I was one to handle an extremely busy job, and as any mother and wife, it often brought guilt. Am I giving enough time? Are my children looked after? And I'm happy to say that I got a lot of support from my husband, and also from my own family, my mother and my sister and others who were there, who were helping out a lot to do with the children and their education and other things. So I had a very challenging time, and I believe I gained a lot and learned a lot from that experience, and was able to contribute to Maldivian citizens in going ahead.
Okay, since you mentioned about your family, just wanted to turn around and ask, and I'm sure everybody also knows by now, you are coming from a huge political background, and also we were aware that Maldives, the politics were having a bit of a turbulent time. Mm-hmm. So how did you keep strong? How did you manage to keep strong and keep your head on this game?
Yes, it has been, especially the last few months, has been particularly difficult for my family. But I think my family is made up also of, they had a background in politics, and they had learnt a lot, my siblings themselves as well. And obviously we have a strong role model, our father, who was a very committed president who served his people for a number of years, and in fact built Maldives to the modern Maldives that we see today, that he introduced us to the rest of the world actually. And during his tenure, tourism industry, for example, really grew rapidly, and Maldives became well known around the world. We were also respected a lot internationally for our standing and our work in a field such as on environment and many other issues. So I think we have a strong role model that we do look up to. It is unfortunate that our politics has come to a stage whereby, as you would know, my father and many other family members are in prison at the moment, and it is indeed heartbreaking for us to see a man who has served his country and also at a very elderly age to be kept like this. There are also my brother, who has been active in talking about improving certain things and reform. He's facing strong allegations on various charges, so he also is in prison, as well as my brother-in-law. So it's particularly difficult, I believe, for my mother and also for my sister. So I have tried to be there for them and to help them during these difficult times. And we pray, and we get a lot of our well-wishers also praying for better times and to see my father free and to hopefully see him in good health, though he is at an advanced age at this point in time.
Definitely, and we also ourselves, we wish and we pray that things come better in Maldives with regards to the political situation as well. And Ms. Dunya, you are a promoter of women's rights and a strong believer in empowering women. So what advice would you give to the women out there when it comes to work-life balance and handling their pressure? Because I think that is something very important that most of our women out there, they find it very tough when it comes to especially work-life balance. So what advice would you like to give to them?
Yes, I think it's important for us to have the confidence to follow our dreams in moving ahead. And I know even when I say that practical situations may not make it that easy for all women to be in full-time work and manage their households and other things. But I think there are now very flexible options as well in terms of work. And I really want to encourage women to have the confidence and to let go of that guilt and to kind of make sure that they also do fulfilling work and are involved in issues around them and in helping their communities, because it can be also a lonely thing, I believe, when you are, your children are studying, husband also goes off to work, and you yourself, I think especially educated women, would wish to use the knowledge that they have learned and to be involved in sharing their skills and giving back to their community. So I think it is possible, and I believe men's thinking has changed. There are many husbands and partners who are very supportive, and I think building that partnership is important as well. And men now do give, I believe, a lot more time, are more involved in parenting and in their households as well. And I think that kind of an environment can be created if you come to an understanding on that, as a woman, that you also want to work and want to contribute and want to perhaps be able to earn something and to stand on your own feet as well. Obviously, it's different for different people and the choices that different women make, and I do recognize and respect that. And I think there are many full-time mothers who find that very fulfilling. I'm not at all trying to say that, all women should be in any particular kind of role. It's just speaking from my experience. I believe that for me, for example, it's important to be involved and important to be able to contribute back to my community, because I believe, for one thing, that I'm very privileged in getting the education and the experience that I have got, and I feel it would be a waste if I were not able to contribute back from that to others less fortunate than myself as well.
That was, in fact, very nice to hear, knowing that women out there, even in Maldives, has been given that opportunity out there. It's not only being at home and looking after the household, but they can also get into diverse fields. And here we have a very great personality with us, of course, and who has gone to that extent without only looking at the things at home, only without being a housewife. She has taken that step forward out there and got herself into diverse fields and has been helping the community as well in the Maldives, isn't it, Ashika?
Yes, and also, Ms. Dunya, since you were mentioning about how supportive your family was, how have your children been supportive in your very busy schedule and with your work?
I think they have, obviously, as children, there would be times when they would be missing their mother, especially when I was involved in a lot of travel to long distances abroad as well. But fortunately, my trips have been always not too long, and I'm able to come back to them. And now today, with modern communication, you can keep in touch and you can see how they're doing. I'm very happy, and I think it is indeed a blessing from God to have good children. My eldest son is actually graduating now. He's completed his education. My second one is at A-level stage, and my youngest is a daughter. And I'm happy to see them doing well in going ahead with their education as very confident young people, and also have a good understanding of what's going on around them, and have a lot of empathy also with our family situation. And it's difficult for them as well to see their grandfather and their uncles in incarceration. They have been with me to visit their grandfather and others, and I think it's a learning experience for them to see what's going on around them, but to be there for their families and to kind of have an understanding and be supportive for their grandmother, for example. I think that's something I have been encouraging them, and I'm glad to see that is happening at present.
Yes, we feel that you're a really privileged woman indeed to have such a beautiful family around you supporting all this journey, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And thank you very much, Ms. Dunya, for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and your vibes on that. And this was Ms. Dunya Maumoon, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs in government of Maldives, and the daughter of Maumoon Abdul Gayoom, the former president of the Maldives. Thank you very much, Dunya, for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you once again.
Yes. So with that fruitful discussion, it's time for us to wind up our Saturday's edition on Rise and Shine. To meet again with another new episode tomorrow. This is me, Anashla, signing out now.
Have a wonderful chocolate day.